Well, 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 music in the cafes at night and revolution in the air. The revolution in Tunisia continues, and if you've got a television set on whilst you're listening to this, you'll see the revolution is being televised in Egypt. President Mubarak has not been seen or heard from, but the Speaker of the Egyptian Parliament will shortly make a statement. It looks like the earth is moving under the feet of the dictatorship there in Cairo. To which I can only say, an understated hallelujah. Now, what a brouhaha there's been about the vulgar, ugly, sexist trash talked by Andy Gray and Richard Keys. And subsequently we've learned, if the newspapers are to be believed, that neither of them are very nice men. I have never met either of them, though I used to play snooker, the next snooker table in Riley's in Dundonald Street in Dundee, next to the then young, bushy-haired, lanky superstar Dundee United footballer. But I've never spoken to him, and I've never spoken to Richard Keys. And from everything I've read, I probably am glad about that. And what they said, and the way that they said it, and the other evidence which miraculously has been produced from the outtakes on Sky Sports, paints them both in a very ugly light. But no uglier, I can promise you, than the quote-unquote banter in every single newsroom at the lower end of the press, most of them owned by the owners of Sky Sports, and in whose fated atmosphere, I can assure you, sexism is the least of it. You know my point of view. I'm against all bigotry. Bigotry is something that's used against people not for anything they've done, not for any personal error they may have made, but used against people because of something over which they had no control. People are born black. People are born Jewish. People are born ginger-haired. People are born homosexual. And people are born women. And to deploy ugly bigotry and prejudice against anyone because of how they were born is so repugnant to me. I have no compunction in saying that these individuals deserve the utter condemnation which it appears many in the nation are proffering. But when I read, as I did on the front page of the Daily Star today, sick sexist pair will never work again, a story about Andy Gray and Richard Keys, that's below the fold on the front page. Above the fold is a picture of a half-naked woman. On page 3 of the newspaper is another half-naked woman. At the back of the newspaper are pages and pages and pages of advertisements for sexual services of all kinds, the objectification of women of all kinds. When I read The Sun denouncing the sexism of Andy Gray and Richard Keys, their erstwhile employees of News International, well, it's a case of pass the sick bag, Alice. And when I hear on the radio of a daytime people whom I personally know to be the furthest thing from politically correct that it's possible to be, chuntering for hours about how right Sky Sports were to sack these men and how deplorable and despicable was their conduct, well, I don't know whether to laugh or cry. Here's my take. Rupert Murdoch was in town. Rupert Murdoch is in very deep trouble. His attempt to buy 100% of B Sky B is in very troubled waters indeed. Andy Gray, Rupert probably just noticed, was, despite being paid £1.7 million a year, amazing, isn't it? £1.7 million a year, being paid by News Corp, was in the queue with me suing News Corp for allegedly hacking into his telephone messages. I reckon that Rupert Murdoch thought, well, talk about biting the hand that feeds you. Here's an opportunity to make our company look a little more shiny than it currently does. That's what I believe happened. They lost Richard Keys as collateral damage. They didn't, I believe, want to lose him. But he at least had the honour to draw the conclusion that as he had done exactly the same as Gray had done, it would be, in terms of ethics and honour, well, a little hard to square with your conscience if he had allowed Gray to go and himself to stay. Well, that's my point of view. What about the point of view of our two guests? Laurie Penny, I've told you before, is a rising star of British progressive politics. She's a young woman whom I heard on Any Questions hold the entire audience in the palm of her hand and beat the powerful men who sat around her, beat them into a cocked hat. She's a brilliant young woman, a brilliant young writer and polemicist. I suppose, though I may be wrong, that she supports the sacking of Gray and the resignation of Keys. Katie Hopkins, on the other hand, on Question Time last night, said some truly extraordinary things. But she maintained that the sacking of these men showed that this was a nation losing its sense of humour. She went on, controversially you might think, I think women actually don't want equal treatment. They couldn't handle it if they got it, quite a number of them. It's a tough world out there. What a lot of women are actually asking for, and you can look aghast at this, she said, is special treatment. Well, Edwina Currie, that other well-known feminist, well, she was on her like a terrier on a ferret. No, a terrier doesn't attack a ferret, does it? Like a ferret on a rodent, let me put it that way, if that's not too cruel to both of them. These two women guests will be up next, debating this very point. But the most important point of view is yours, and I need to have it. 08717 223344 is the number to call me. 81089 is the number to text me, and you can email me free of charge through the website at talksport.co.uk.